thought is incessant. I mean, every morning you wake up and you're just chased out of bed by your thoughts, and you're just thinking every moment of the day. If you're in some kind of psychological pain, that is a story of thinking without knowing that you're thinking.
Sam Harris, neuroscientist, philosopher, and best-selling author. He divides his genius between two interwoven missions, bringing reason to our culture wars on making sense and bringing equipoise to our minds through the Waking Up app. This week in part 2, we explore his waking up brain, diving into the mechanics of non-duality, the illusion of the self, and how to find true equanimity in an age of anxiety.
Mindfulness is the thing that allows you to pay enough attention so that you can see thoughts for what they are. There is no self in the center of it.
You start to really notice that we have this stereophonic, kind of polyphonic universe out here, sort of ethereal soup.
Every feeling of anger you have ever felt arose and passed away, and it's not here anymore. And it's just like the chirp of a bird.
If you want to directly experience Sam's approach to meditation and mindfulness, go to onecommune.com/Sam to get the first 7 days of his introductory course for free. Welcome to Commune. In terms of being able to confront or manage one's own, or to confront the chaos of the world and really manage one's own nervous system, sort of to return to the notion of mindfulness for a moment. What is the way in the door there? And I guess, I spent years working, torch-bearing for my wife to sort of demystify yoga, right? Big tent for yoga. We want to get a lot of people in downward dog because, if we get more, it makes you stronger and more flexible, but maybe a little ahimsa will kind of slip in the back door there. But what I found was that my efforts to demystify yoga really just kind of led to a soaring Lululemon stock price or whatever. Yeah. And so I wonder, how do you scale mindfulness without kind of stripping it of its true value? Because I think I came across the other day meditation for productivity, and I'm like, oh really? We're just gonna mint more assholes with a practice, something. I wonder how you spread this ancient practice without denuding it of its true value.
Well, for me, it's a bit of a high wire act because I on the one hand, don't want to endorse any of the religious superstition and otherworldliness and kind of frank confusion around just what's really reasonable to believe. So I'm very critical of organized religion and to varying degrees. I mean, this is a something that can get you a fair amount of hate mail, but it's. All the world's religions aren't equally culpable for the chaos and irrationality we see in the world. I mean, there are some religions which are intrinsically benign. I mean, it's not to say that they're rational, but they, you mentioned ahimsa, right? So it's the Jain principle of non-harming is, that the crazier you get as a Jain, the less and less anyone has to worry about you because you become somebody. The Jain ascetics are spending all their time trying not to step on ants and not to swallow bugs, and they're obviously vegetarian, and they're just not going to, they're pacifists. I mean, Gandhi got his pacifism from Jainism. So these are not the kinds of people. I mean, they might be religious fanatics, but believing things that are insupportable, under the harsh glare of reason, but they're not going to blow themselves up on an airplane, right? I mean, this is just not, it's not what we're Jainism. There's no attractor on the landscape of fanaticism, believing what you have to believe to be a fanatical Jain that's going to give you a group like Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State or Hamas.
Yeah, you're not running from a group of sadhus, generally.
No. Yeah. I mean, but Hinduism's got its own, Hindu, they're not like,
true.
The Shaivites are not like the Jains.
The Jains, true.
So you can get a fair amount of barbarity in India under a Hindu guise, but Still, it's all different. Hinduism is much more relaxed than the Abrahamic faith, in the sense that because its pantheon is so vast and just elastic, it can absorb basically anything you throw at it. So it'll take Jesus as an avatar of Vishnu, and it's like there's no problem, right? They'll just will honor everybody's gods because we've got 1,000. But Islam cannot return the favor. I mean, from the point of view of Islam, Hinduism is the prototypical case of polytheism, which is shirk, in the Quran, and it's a killing offense, right? I mean, you should be killing these barbarians who can't figure out there's only one God, and that Muhammad is his final prophet, right? They're not even supposed to live under the protection of dimitude, which Christians and Jews, being quote people of the book, are afforded under a Islamic regime. So there are a lot of asymmetries here. It really matters what people believe. So for the purpose of teaching mindfulness, mindfulness is, unlike most other spiritual practices, something you can adopt and look into without believing anything on insufficient evidence. I mean, the only thing you need to believe really is it comes in the form of something that's obviously true logically, or just at worst a scientific hypothesis. It's just if you want to understand your mind from the first person point of view, if there's something there to be discovered directly through the use of your own attention to your experience, well, then it makes sense to pay more attention, right? All you have to do is the mindfulness really is just paying close attention to the nature of your experience in each moment. And there's nothing you need to add to your experience that is cultural at all. You don't have to believe in anything. You don't have to start chanting a mantra. You don't have to, there's nothing to explain. There's just, can you pay attention? And what is it like to try, right? And if I told, our listeners to pay attention to anything for the next 30 seconds, their breath, the sight of the floor in front of them, the sound of the birds outside their window. They could pick any arbitrary channel of their sensory experience. Just 30 seconds, just pay attention without getting lost in thought. Almost no one can do it. Mm-hmm. Like 99.9% of people will fail. Now, some won't know that they have failed. Some will try this exercise, and I would invite people to pause this conversation and try this experiment. Mm-hmm. Some people will think they've succeeded, but what's really happened there is that they're so distracted by thought, they're so lost in thought that they couldn't actually even engage the exercise in any meaningful way. They were just thinking for 30 seconds, thinking, well, what's this guy talking about? I'm paying attention. It's easy. I can see that thing on that. And they're talking to themselves. It's an automaticity. It's the noise is so incessant that it is white noise that they can't even notice as noise. So they can't notice they're distracted. So this is an experiment that anyone can perform. And the failure mode here should be interesting, because this really is the basis of everyone's psychological suffering. The underlying claim here is that if you're unhappy, if you're in some kind of psychological pain, if you're anxious or resentful or envious or worried or filled with regret or disappointed, whatever it is, whatever the character of your suffering, or just the kind of the mediocrity of your moment-to-moment sense of yourself in the world, that is a story of thinking without knowing that you're thinking, without clearly noticing thoughts arise in the mind and change and pass away moment to moment. And mindfulness is the only, whatever you call it, mindfulness is the thing that allows you to pay enough attention so that you can see thoughts for what they are, and you can see the way they unnoticed kindle the resulting negative emotions, and the way negative emotions then ramify certain patterns of thought, and that whole wheelworks of unhappiness gets started there, and it can be interrupted just by paying attention. And so it's a very long way of answering your question. How do I not lose the profundity of what is taught here while still divorcing it from its religious underpinnings. The thing I don't do, which many secularizers of mindfulness do, unfortunately, is I don't minimize the profundity and even sacredness of what can be found on the other side of being distracted by thought. I mean, there really is something to recognize here, which is every bit as wonderful and in some cases even seemingly mystical as what is claimed in some of the traditional texts. I mean, when the Buddhists talk about the illusoriness of the self and, states of unconditional love and compassion, all of that really is there to be experienced. I mean, there are far reaches of human well-being that can be explored just by paying attention. They can be explored with psychedelics too. I mean, less systematically, but many people who have taken psychedelics have some intimation of what is there to be discovered. But it's the way you don't lose the good stuff is to not lose the good stuff. I mean, to really, it's not a matter of stress reduction or becoming more productive or getting better sleep or whatever the low-hanging fruit seems to be for people when talking about the benefits of meditation. It's much more important than that.
Yeah. I mean, those can be the happy byproducts of it.
Yeah.
But when I look at the rising popularity in psychedelics, for example, it appears to me to be a direct product of an era of extreme individualism. Like on some level, like we don't have the communities and institutions that provide a sense of community or a feeling of the universe as something greater than oneself. I think about like mystical experiences, right? Sort of this transformation from the feeling of being a separate self to the sensation of being kind of integrated with the totality of the universe. Mm-hmm. And, psychedelics in many ways provide I think a shortcut. And sometimes a peak experience that can be like very useful. Mm-hmm. It sort of gets you out of the harbor sometimes. But day to day, a practice can be, it's very, very useful. And, I think that anyone listening has to be honest with themselves. Like their attention has degraded. I don't know really anyone, and I look at myself, I have a sort of clunky daily practice, but I still have a hard time sitting down and reading a book for an hour.
Yeah.
A really hard time. Yeah. I kind of have to sequester myself, turn everything off, go up to my little cabin. Yeah. And even then, my mind is wandering every 3 or 4 pages. So this idea of having a single point of attention and returning to that single point of attention over and over and over and over again. I mean, it's great as part of the practice, but it then begins to punctuate and spill into your life in other happy ways, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no separation really between practice and the rest of life. I mean, that's something I try to get across over waking up. It's I think there are ways to be misled. There are certainly ways to be misled by the experiences one has on psychedelics, and there are ways to be misled, frankly, by practicing meditation and thinking you understand. Thinking there's some point of demarcation between practice and life, and and to some degree, the artifice of just having a formal practice or going on silent retreat, which I've done a bunch, though not recently. That can give you this sense that there really is this there's a difference between like the real question is, why isn't this moment a moment of real insight? Or like why are you letting yourself off the hook? The fact that you really, in my view, you don't get any credit for having sat an hour in the morning. Like this is the moment. Like this is your life. Yeah. So like are you awake now or not? So there's a way in which we keep score of our spiritual progress, which is encouraging of certain illusions and I think bad habits of attention.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we on the one hand, you should let go of any spiritual identity. I mean, like the idea that you're now a meditator and even a good one or whatever. I mean, like that's not part of this project, right? Like that's more of delusion.
Right. So this is which part of you wants to be a better meditator, more enlightened. If you turn that on yourself, it's the ego saying that. That person is not going to arrive, right? You're not actually going to successfully take that person along for the full journey. Yeah.
But conversely, there really is, in each present moment, there's the opportunity to embody the deepest wisdom you've ever found, right? And my argument is that, I mean, this is sort of the difference between dualistic and non-dualistic practice, right? So from the point of view of dualism, you really are somebody who needs to go on a journey. I mean, you really do have a problem. You're not enlightened. You're actually far away from the goal. And you're at the base of the mountain, and there are many different paths that promise some way of ascending to the peak. But you can't lie to yourself. You're at the base. You're not at the peak. You're not a Buddha. And you really have to figure out how to schlep from here to the top of the mountain. And by the looks of it, that's going to be an arduous journey, right? I mean, it's just like there's no, can there be any doubt how far away you were? I mean, you were just having an argument with your wife, 15 minutes ago. That felt shitty. If you ask her, she'll tell anyone who asks, you're not enlightened because she had to put up with you 15 minutes ago. So, of course, dualism is the kind of the punchline here. Like you're not a Buddha. You're far away. Here's the practice. It's going to be hard. You got to pay attention to the breath. Chant a mantra. Go on a vision quest. Take a lot of acid. You're going to go up and down and up and down. You might have a peak experience, but it's going to wear off. And it's just going to be little you there sitting in your skin again, waiting for some change that seems auspicious. And it's not going to happen by itself. So you're going to have to produce that change by now, here's a meditation app. You're going to use this assiduously, and it's teaching you this practice of mindfulness. And maybe you should go on a silent retreat, and it's a lot of work. Now, all of that can seem very real, and it is, and unfortunately, it is kind of self-confirming as a philosophy. I mean, like you really can practice in such a way, even on silent retreat, even for months at a stretch, where you're doing nothing but meditate for 18 hours a day. You can practice in such a way as to seem to confirm that the distance from your goal, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're not, and even you can do that even when the spirit of the practice becomes very effortless, and people are, the teachings are explicitly trying to give you this feeling that you're not far from the goal, that the wisdom is already here, the consciousness is already empty, the self already doesn't exist. You don't have to meditate it out of existence. Still, given the starting point that everyone has, which is that they feel like a subject in their heads that now has to pay attention to experience through mindfulness, and can get distracted by thought, and has to come back to the object of meditation, whether it's the breath or whatever. There still seems to be this feeling of subject or self that is the starting point, and it is this feeling of confinement. And it seems like you can actually meditate on the evidence of your unenlightenment moment to moment. I mean, you can feel, I don't feel bliss right now. I feel a little contracted. I feel, I was just distracted for 2 minutes. I was supposed to be meditating. Now I'm back. I was thinking about something stupid about, where I'm going to have lunch today. And now I'm back. And so it's like, I'm clearly like, I'm not even good at this. And now I'm paying attention to the breath, and like, why, okay, that's a thought. I'm back to the breath. Okay, it feels all right, but it's like, it's not nearly as good as MDMA or acid. So it's like, this is, I know what it's like to be really high, because I've taken those drugs, and that's got to be way closer to what the Buddha or Jesus or any other real spiritual patriarch or matriarch was like. So I'm definitely far away from this goal. Now, what non-dual insight into the nature of mind yields is a puncturing of all of that, where you recognize that consciousness itself, just the quality in you that's aware of anything, the condition that is experiencing anything, whether it's the highs of the perfect acid trip or the lows of you just feeling terrible about yourself and terrible about your life, and you're stuck in thinking about it all, right? That the thing that is aware of either of those extremes and anything in between is just this open space of conscious awareness, wherein if you pay attention clearly enough and in the right way, you can notice it is in fact already free of this thing you're calling I. There is no self in the center of it or on the edge of it. And when you can be mindful of that itself, that condition of what in Buddhism is called emptiness. I mean, it's a kind of a misleading word for what we're talking about, but we can talk about why they name it that. But or I prefer just talking about non-dual awareness.
Sure.
When you can rest in that openness and clarity, you recognize that there's a kind of equalization where it's just, on some level, the blissful, light-filled, full, hierophany of the psychedelic experience isn't really better than just, the next taste of your tea, or even just you looking at your inbox, your email inbox from this condition of open, centerless awareness. Mm-hmm. And so there's this kind of equalizing function, but crucially, from the point of view of meditation practice, it is the type of practice wherein it's true to say, in each moment you can actually arrive at the goal, right? Like in each moment of just paying attention, you are on the mountaintop. You're not at its base. You're not confronted with this felt sense of distance from your goal. Rather, you've surrendered all goals. There's just this open awareness wherein everything is just appearing all by itself.
Yeah, to ground that dichotomy between dualism and non-dualistic practice or sensation, I suppose. Like for me, and feel free to coach me here, it's like I will engage in a practice of sound awareness from time to time, where I will get really quiet and sort of open my earballs. And, we tend to experience sound moment to moment, kind of monophonically. It's just one big wave. But when you get quiet and start paying attention, you start to notice, just doing it now, even a little bit, like, the buzz of that sound, of that sign a little bit, or there was a car that just went by a minute ago, or, you're just kind of rustling around in the seat. You start to really notice that we have this stereophonic, kind of polyphonic universe out here. And, there's another car, and you become the sound engineer, the producer of that. And, you become more and more aware, and you can almost start to like separate each track as you're sitting at a mixing board. And for me, that's like a useful practice in honing the spotlight, if you will, of my awareness, or even maybe opening up to a more sort of floodlight style awareness. But I am still the subject there, right? There's still a feeler of the feelings. There's still a hearer of the sounds, versus the experience that I sometimes have with, I will engage in what I think of as a half-lidded meditation. And I think this might actually be in one of, as one of the segments in Waking Up. I could be wrong, but you could correct me. But I will sit and look out at a cluster of trees and plants, and I will kind of squint slightly so I'm half lidded, and I will stop labeling what appears in the foreground or the background, and everything just seems to become sort of a mix of like light and shadow. It's not the trees anymore. It's just kind of this sort of ethereal soup. I do think this is in your app, because then after 5 or 10 minutes of doing that, I try to turn that same quality of attention back on myself, and then notice if there really is a self there at all. And this is my glimpse into non-dualism on the best of days. Is that like a fair understanding of how different practices might yield slightly different sensations or experiences?
Generically, it's true to say that any experience can be the basis of recognizing what I'm talking about here. So it's like there's no experience that is intrinsically better than any other for noticing that there's no one noticing that experience, right? So, and so sound, sight, any other sensation. It's amazing. There's not that many things to be aware of. We've got our 5 senses, and we have objects of mind like thoughts and emotions and moods, which are more of a kind of a seemingly stable kind of coloration of the mind. And there are other things that we have other senses that we don't really think about much as senses, like things like proprioception and there's even echolocation. I mean, to some degree, we echolocate. If you kind of hum and put your hand in front of your face at various distances, you can notice that you sort of echolocate. And then we have the interoreception. So there's a lot we're potentially aware of, but basically we've got 5 sensory channels and then the 6th channel of the objects of mind. I can tell you what's especially good about hearing and what's especially good about having your eyes open. But again, anything is potentially good enough to recognize this. So don't be misled by privileging one over the other. But what's great about sound, especially when you're sitting with your eyes closed, as many people do when they meditate, immediately reveals the kind of the spaciousness of awareness. And when you're just noticing these kind of punctate changes in the soundscape, you hear a bird chirp, you hear a car go by, you hear the rustling of the leaves. A few things are communicated very quickly in that channel, which aren't so obvious when you're just seeing, like if I'm just staring at the floor with open eyes. First, you're hearing very directly lots of impermanence, right? Because just things are arising and passing away, and you can't hold on to them. You could not hold on to the sound for an instant longer than it persists, right?
Yeah.
And you have no control. You have no control over what you hear, and the impingement reveals this prior condition of you're just the space in which these punctate deliverances are appearing, and that can seem different. But the visual field doesn't strike people that way. If I'm going to stare at something static in the visual field where there's no obvious changes, well then it's not quite true to say that that impermanence is undeniable, or that the lack of control is undeniable. Because I can decide to look at the carpet, and I can decide to look at the wall. I can look back at the carpet, and that can seem like, what's it? I've got total control over that, right? But sound is not like that. I mean, sound is just you hear this. If someone listening to us can't decide not to hear that, right? This is just going to come, and it's going to keep coming as long as I do it. And so there's a kind of a surrender and the non-graspability. All of that starts to come through, and so you can emphasize that in your practice, and it can be a really wonderful way of recognizing those qualities of experience.
Yeah. And can we not treat envy, jealousy, greed like sound?
Yeah. Emotion. Every feeling of anger you have ever felt arose and passed away, and it's not here anymore. And it's just like the chirp of a bird. And if it comes again in the next moment, you can notice that change in physiology is very much like this melody, albeit a perhaps an undesirable one, where it's just every moment it's got granular detail, and all of those details are a story of changes. Things are arising and passing away. The difference with the visual field, however, and the reason why some traditions, like the Dzogchen tradition, tends to emphasize meditating with your eyes open, is that we really define our sense of self principally visually. I mean, the kind of demarcation between you and the environment and you and other people, and the sense of being implicated socially with other people is very much a visual reference point. I mean, so much so that we can run an experiment where if we put video goggles on our heads and then swap the feeds so that I'm seeing the world through your goggles and you're seeing the world through my goggles. I actually haven't done this experiment myself, but this is a well reported in the literature. It's called the body swapping illusion. You can have the experience of actually just being in somebody else's body. It's like it takes nothing more than just getting visual input from another locus, and all of a sudden you're over there.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, so much so that we often associate our sense of self as a locus of attention, sort of crouching like a little tiger behind the eyes. So, right. So yeah.
So given that that's sort of the baseline geometry of selfhood, meditating with eyes open is a very not, in my experience, the recognition of non-duality is more salient with eyes open, because the thing it's not that you can't notice it with eyes closed and just listening to sounds. And in that moment, it would be like, you're hearing the car, you're hearing the bird, and there's sort of gradations of this. You can focus much more closely, so that you notice that, okay, it's not out there, it's actually just impinging directly on your eardrum. I mean, it's like there is no distance. I mean, it's really, you're not, it's right, it couldn't be closer to awareness than it is, right? And it's not even a bird or a car, because those are just concepts. It's just whatever the characteristics of the sound are. And if you pay close enough attention, you can notice that there is no sound and subject hearing the sound. There's just pure hearing. There's just a moment of collapse where it's just pure hearing. And that can be, you can arrive at that by virtue of kind of more and more concentration, just really drilling into the sound. Or you can notice it just by kind of looking for the hearer. I mean, you can ask the question, like, what is hearing this sound? And you can have this brief experience in the beginning of just there's no one, there's just hearing, but that collapse into non-duality isn't as vivid, in my experience, as it is with open eyes, when you suddenly feel like, okay, there's nothing behind my face. Like, you and I are having a social experience now. I'm looking at you, you're looking at me. The natural dualistic feeling is for me to look at your eyes and to feel like, okay, I'm implicated. Like, I can follow your gaze back to where I know or assume I'm sitting, right? So I'm over here I'm implicated by your gaze, right? So like, that's the feeling of self, is this feeling of implication where you're looking at me, I'm aware of that. And so I'm sort of seeing myself through your eyes. And now I feel I feel like I'm this thing that can be seen behind my face. And in that sense, my face is almost like a mask I'm wearing. I'm the thing that's behind the face that can be seen and reacted to and judged and all that. So in this context, non-duality is especially vivid, because when seen, there's this feeling of no implication, right? The experience is, you're not looking at anything. I'm free to just, like, in some sense, there's only the world, and you're in it,
right?
And I'm not on the edge of it. I'm not on the edge of it, reacting to it, thinking about it, trying to change it. There's just this totality of appearance, and as you know, this one teacher who was, kind of nominally a Zen teacher, but kind of a self-invented teacher. Douglas Harding wrote this book on having no head,
Right.
and he was really trying to push on this intuition very directly in social contexts. Whereas you recognize that if you're, you and I are looking at each other's heads by looking at each other, but I can't see my own head, right? And to make that vivid, I mean, to look for my head while looking at yours, I realize there's only one head that can be seen. It's just the world. Your head's in the middle of it, but my head is nowhere. Where my head is supposed to be, there's just the world, right? And so that subtle turnabout of looking for the thing that's looking on your side, looking for your head, looking for the self. In a social context, the loss of that is more vivid because we have it, so we're so captivated by it most of the time. And when someone looks at us, like a stranger in a cafe or whatever, all of a sudden that's that moment of self-consciousness that is provoked there. That contraction is what we mean by self. I mean, it is just this energetic contraction in the field of consciousness.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like if you're just in a park or anywhere, just kind of minding your own business, going about your day, and then you notice someone else noticing you.
Yeah.
Right. So that automatically elicits some kind of clutch. Yeah. Right. Some sort of almost like somatic clutch. And it is often that clutch of the muscle in response to being seen or being told like you're not good enough or you don't look good enough or, try harder or whatever, that then elicits this greater sense of self, somatic sense of self.
Yeah. Actually, the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre had this, I think, truly right. I mean, I don't have that much time for existentialist philosophy, but one piece I think he really did get right was that this sort of social intersubjective structure of the self, where it's largely formed based on our recognition. It's developmentally at some point, when we're 2 or 3 or 4. That we are an object in the world for others, right? And the primal occasion that he describes in his book Being and Nothingness is of a voyeur looking standing outside the window of his love object. He's this creepy guy in the bushes looking through the window at some woman. I forget the details, but he's just given over to pure observation, right? He's totally effaced. He knows he can't be seen, and he's just looking at his object of his desire. And then all of a sudden, he hears someone step up behind him, right? And so that shift of that sudden collapse, where that there's something at your back, that you're the object for another. That is the structure of that collapse. That's a collapse that's happening 1,000 times a day for us. Right?
Yeah, I have this. So I have 3 daughters, and they're dancers, and I am just chronically late to pick them up from the studio. Right. I am the late great Jeff Krasno to all the dance moms of the San Fernando Valley. Yeah. And so I was late to pick up my middle daughter, Ondine, once, and the way that dance studios advertise, they generally have like a glass window. So you can kind of see in, right? But they can't totally see out. So of course I'm like the last dad there, and my daughter's in the studio, and she's dancing to Debussy or something impressionistic, and the lilt of her hands is just perfect, and she's just moving, dancing as if she had no audience, that kind of freedom of movement. And so I just stop at the window, and I'm just like totally transfixed, right? I'm just lost in her lostness, and it just like takes me away. And then, I must have like fluttered too close to the light or something. So she notices me out of the corner of her eye, right? And sort of like observer's effect. She sort of starts to dance like a particle and not a wave or something. She gets her dance bag, and we go out towards the car, and right before I get in the car, something grabs my elbow, and I turn around, and it happens to be another tardy dance mom. And she's like, "You must just love your daughter so much." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I mean, of course I do, yeah." I'm like, "Well, why do you say that?" She's like, "Because I was watching you watch her from the window, and you were so transfixed. And I was transfixed with your, lostness." And, it was sort of illustrative of, and of course, as soon as she said it, I got like super awkward and like, oh, shucks. And
I wasn't transfixed.
I had to tie my shoe or something. But this, there is a strange, this is sort of a stretch around observer's effect, I suppose, or some distant parallel to Schrodinger's cat or something there. So
I think the structure of the self is in large measure, it gets structured in relationship. We are social primates, and we, long before we locate ourselves as passengers in our bodies, we are led to that by being intruded upon by other people who are treating us as objects for themselves, i.e. our parents mostly. So we internalize, once language gets tuned up, we internalize the speech we're engaging with others, so that we're always, in some sense we're always kind of talking to mommy, even when she leaves the room, even 50 years later when we're just middle-aged men. We're thinking, we're not talking to ourselves. This covert speech never turns off, and that is the real obstacle to many people in the beginning in meditation. It's not that meditation is a way of stopping thought or getting rid of thought. We still need to be able to think, but it's a recognition of what is prior to thought. It's the context of thought which gets occluded for virtually everyone, because thought is incessant. Every morning you wake up and you're just chased out of bed by your thoughts, and you're just thinking every moment of the day until you struggle to fall asleep at night because you're doing so much thinking.
Yeah, obviously there's so many areas to explore there, kind of the difference between consciousness as sentience and consciousness more kind of in an Eastern context of like, I wake up and I am the blackboard upon which the phenomenal world is etched, moment to moment. But I think,
just a quick sidebar on that. I don't think we have to resolve the metaphysics to get all of the benefit from the practice. I'm just agnostic as to what the right understanding of consciousness's place in the universe is. Just how it's integrated with the physics of things or the apparent physics of things. I just don't know. It's obvious that the jury is still out as to exactly how consciousness arises, or among some people, my wife included, whether it even arises in the first place. Whether it might be a fundamental characteristic of the universe. Certainly not going to embarrass yourself in scientific circles if you think consciousness is being produced by the brain, that some level of information processing produces it, and that's just true, and then it yields other spooky questions of whether or not we're going to produce conscious machines when we build out AI that is has all the characteristics of a human mind or more, and all those questions are, I think, open still. The same things are there to be discovered through direct first-person experience, whatever is true on any of those questions.
Yeah, my instinct tells me that consciousness is emergent and across a continuum. That might be classified as panpsychist. I'm not really sure, but that I do attribute some degree of consciousness to a slug, or that can feel its weight on the floor of the patio or something, or certainly a tree that has photoreceptors and is gathering sunlight and transmuting it into carbohydrates and shoving it down.
If you think anything that has a kind of a complex process. Even a single cell might have some interior dimension of what it's like to be that thing. That would be some species of panpsychism.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, it begets its own. I mean, it's tempting because it seems to push the mystery of emergence further away. It's like, okay, well, if it's consciousness all the way down, or most of the way down, it seems like, well, okay, then there's no special mystery as to why a brain would be conscious. But there's still a mystery in the sense that there's this question of how levels of consciousness can aggregate, and the so-called combination problem for panpsychists. It seems to be mysterious as to why information processing at one level would have its kind of a global consciousness associated with it, like a brain, but the brain plus the heart wouldn't be its own system that would have its own level, or the liver itself wouldn't be conscious as a liver.
Yeah.
So there's just, if a single cell is conscious, why isn't the liver conscious as a kind of an independent zip code of what it's like to be something?
Yeah, that it relies on the Indra's net effect. Essentially, it doesn't operate outside of an interconnected system, basically, to some degree.
Yeah. I mean, there's some very detailed thinking in neuroscience at the moment around this, about what constitutes a system that could subserve consciousness, even if consciousness is quite a bit spookier than many people imagine, in that there could be some very primitive systems that are conscious. It's just trying to get at the details of emergence. I mean, one is integrated information theory. There's nothing that I've come across that isn't at some level kind of begging the question on what has been known for a very long time in philosophy as the hard problem of consciousness from David Chalmers. I mean, I just think there is a fundamental mystery. However, whatever's true, it would be just fundamentally mysterious if consciousness were a fundamental constituent of the universe. I mean, that would just be some kind of miracle. How does that happen? But that's somewhat analogous to the miracle that there's anything at all in the first place. Like, why is there something rather than nothing? How did anything get started, including the laws of physics? It's like, if you really imagine there was first nothing, like really nothing, and then there was the emergence of the laws of physics by which everything else appeared. Well, that's just a statement of a miracle. But so it is with the emergence of consciousness at any level. I mean, whatever is the basis for it, I think is fundamentally non-explanatory in the way that most other things we understand scientifically are not. I mean, most things that we understand scientifically, scientific explanation has this character where your intuitions at one level can get pushed through to the lower level and get conserved. I mean, the very simple case would be something like the liquidity of water, right? So you think of water in its liquid state, and you think, well, why is it like that? Well, it's like that because the molecules of water at that temperature are kind of freely sliding past each other in a way that you can't say of one molecule that it's wet, because the wetness is a relationship of many, many molecules. But so one molecule is just a molecule of water, but you get enough of them together sliding around in this liquid state in a condition where you could pass your hand through it. That's exactly what you would expect would be the underlying explanation for wetness. And why is frozen water not wet? Well, because at a certain temperature, water, the molecules of water freeze into kind of a lattice structure, and you can't pass your hand through it because they're rigidly bound together. Okay, and this explains the kind of macro properties of matter in virtue of their micro constituents in a way that conserves our intuitions. Now, there are a few places in science where our intuitions break down, and that's they're famously inscrutable. I mean, the quantum mechanics is the obvious case, but most of science is not like that. I mean, to talk about how DNA works as the basis of heredity is not a story of spooky things that we don't understand. It is a story very much of like billiard balls, hitting each other, or dominoes falling in ways that are very intuitive, right? So it is with most of what we understand scientifically. But with the emergence of consciousness, I just don't see a space for an explanation that makes intuitive sense. I think it's just going to be on some level, the restatement of what will seem like a miracle.
Well, as Alan Watts said, we will not screw the inscrutable or F the ineffable or something in his inimitable turns of phrase. Well, Sam, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your continued commitment to help us navigate the backwaters and landmines of the political landscape, and also to help us regulate our nervous systems in relationship to that landscape, because I just don't think there could be anything more important than trying to cultivate the ability to think clearly in this moment. So thank you for your work.
It's been a pleasure. Great to meet you.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
To be continued.
To be continued.
And that's a wrap on our 2-part series with Sam Harris. As a reminder, you can get the first 7 days of Sam's introductory meditation course for free at onecommune.com/Sam. Okay, that's all from the Commune for today. My name is Jeff Krasno, and I am here for you.